Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today will be part 4 of my series of the most well-rounded members of each K-pop group. Today's video will be on itzy and their 5 members, Yeji, Lia, Roojin, Chaeyoung, and Yuna. If you haven't seen my previous videos, I suggest you read this disclaimer. Please pause so you can. Basically in this video I will be ranking each member in 3 categories: singing, dancing and rapping. Since itzy has a lot of discussion about who gets the top spot in each category, instead of putting each member's ranking in each category at the end of discussing their skills and weaknesses, I will put all of my rankings of each category and the final well-rounded ranking towards the end of the video. This will probably happen only for itzy since the rankings are so tight and close together, if that makes sense. As said in the disclaimer, I'm not formally trained in any of these categories, but I will be basing my reasonings off what other trained singers, dancers and rappers say about each member. Just know that just because I name certain members the most well-rounded doesn't mean they are the most talented, and that this ranking can always change because things can always change with time. I will be going from oldest member to youngest. So with all that said, let's start. First up is Hwang Yeji. Her current positions are leader, main dancer, lead vocalist and sub-rapper. First let's take a look at her vocals. I've seen many videos and read many articles ranking and analyzing itzy's vocals, and there are many things to discuss when it comes to Yeji's vocals. Some good things to note about her singing is her amazing pitch control, her projection, and her clear stable vocals. As the main dancer, you'd expect her live singing to not be as great as her dancing, but surprisingly the praise goes both ways. However, her range is not so versatile and her lower register lacks a lot compared to her fellow members. In addition to that, even though she has good projection and stable vocals, it doesn't really help her while performing, as it seems that she pushes out notes more often than naturally singing, which is tiring. Despite all that, she is lead vocalist material, so she does fulfill her position. Next let's take a look at her dancing. Again, this is another tough category to rank her in because the whole group is really talented and skilled in this category. She has amazing stage presence, facials, and has very detailed and sharp powerful moves. However, she tends to overdance in a lot of itzy's performances and that brings her down as a dancer. There's always some talk about her and Chaeyoung fighting for the top spot, and they are both amazingly skilled in dancing, but even the most minuscule things can bring her down. Yeji is an incredible idol dancer because of her amazing stage presence, accuracy, and swiftness, but is she the first in dancing? Lastly let's look at her rapping. Yeji doesn't rap as much as Yuna and Roojin, but she raps just enough to be evaluated. Her flow could be improved, but for right now it's alright. Her tone is perfect for rapping and adds flavor to the performance, but she can be a little unclear in rapping compared to when she sings. Yeji is obviously an all-rounded idol, with her strengths being in singing and dancing and her tiny weaknesses being in rapping. But does she live up to her name of being the ace of itzy? Next we have Choi Jisoo, aka Lia. Her current positions are main vocalist and sub-rapper. Let's take a look at her vocals. She has really good projection and consistency as a vocalist and is a very versatile singer. On the downside, she can sometimes strain her voice, especially in higher ranged notes, and can sometimes lose and lack power. Other than that, she is still an amazing singer and I definitely think that she lives up to her main vocalist position. Next is her dancing. Lia is in no way a terrible dancer. In fact, she has improved so much since her debut. But the fact of the matter is that she lacks in dancing in comparison to her fellow members. Lia makes great facial expressions, but she has a lack of energy at times and she has poor muscle and body control. She doesn't have much power in dancing, but this still doesn't make her a terrible idol dancer. She always has a smile on her face and she performs to the best of her ability, so she's definitely not a bad dancer. Lastly is her rapping. Lia hasn't rapped at all except maybe in Wanted and 24 Hours. Lia is pretty clear when she raps and she seems to enjoy it a lot, but she has given very simple slower raps, so I cannot really evaluate her rapping further. I hope to see rapper Lia in a future comeback. Overall, Lia has many talents and skills, with her strengths being in singing and rapping and her weaknesses in dancing, but she could technically pass as an all-rounder, for she can do all 3 things. Next up is Shin Roojin. Her current positions are main rapper, lead dancer, sub-vocalist and center. First let's take a look at her vocals. Roojin has an amazing lower range as a singer, but it doesn't go much further from that. Her range isn't as large as other members and she struggles a little when singing higher ranged notes. While she has good rhythm and projection, she lacks control sometimes due to her untrained technique. Nevertheless, she is not a terrible singer, she's just not as good as her fellow members. Next, let's look at her dancing. Like most of itzy, Roojin's dancing is above average. Roojin has amazing body control and great quick movements. Her body locks are incredible, but sometimes she can be a little bit stiff in some areas. Another weakness of hers is that she tends to underdance sometimes, which isn't necessarily bad, but as an idol dancer you must have lots of energy and charisma on stage. And while she does have charisma, she can really show a lack of energy on stage. Other than that, she is still a really amazing dancer and has great stage presence, so let's move on to her rapping. Roojin's lower pitched voice is very well suited for rapping, and while she may sound a bit nasal, she has great technique and flow as well as great breath control and stability. Like her vocals, she has great projection, and that is a good quality to have when it comes to live stages, or any stages for that matter. So overall, Roojin pretty much is an all-rounder, with her strengths being in dancing and rapping and her weakness in singing. But is she the most well-rounded in the group? Next is Lee Chae-young. Her current positions are main dancer, sub-vocalist and sub-rapper. First, let's discuss her vocals. She has an amazing range and she is quite stable while performing. She has great rhythm, but the only major weakness she holds is that her higher register lacks a lot compared to her other members. But she is the best vocalist in the sub-vocal line and could easily be a lead vocalist in any other group, or even in itzy. Next is her dancing. Like I said previously, there's always some debate on who is the better dancer in itzy, her or Yeji. I'm not gonna talk about that now, but let's talk about her dancing abilities. Chae-young has many desirable qualities as a dancer. For starters, she is very fluid and has the most control of her body movements in the group. She has great flow, flexibility, and the best dancing technique in the group. She dances very gracefully with lots of energy and versatility while also being able to not under or over dance. Her only weakness is that her facial expressions lack some, but those can always be improved through time of her being an idol. Chae-young is an incredible dancer as a rookie and has so much skill and talent that has been sharpened in her days of being a trainee. But is she the best in itzy? Lastly is her rapping. As far as rapping goes, Chae-young is not that bad. She has incredible flow and rhythm as shown in her singing, but she tends to mumble and be unclear sometimes while rapping. She also isn't given such fast raps like Roojin or Yuna, so we haven't seen it all yet. She lacks in stability unlike her singing, but it's not odd to see that in idols for most untrained in that category. Overall, Chae-young is a very talented all-rounder with her strengths in singing and dancing and her weakness in rapping. But is she the most well-rounded member? Lastly, we have Shin Yuna. Her current positions are lead rapper, lead dancer, sub-vocalist, visual and maknae. First, let's take a look at her vocals. While Yuna's vocals are pretty weak compared to most of her fellow members, she still sings amazingly well. She uses her chest voice very well, and she has great versatility in her voice and range. She also has great projection and is very clear on stage. However, she can be a little bit pitchy from time to time or sometimes doesn't sing in the right key while performing, but that doesn't make her a terrible singer. You can hear her loud and clear while she's performing, and that's all that matters. Other than that, her technique and stability could use some improvement, but she's still a decent vocalist, so she definitely fits her position as sub-vocal in the group. Next is her dancing. Yuna has good control over most of her body movements and is pretty fluid for the most part. Yuna makes great facial expressions and is probably one of the best if not the best performer of itzy. She has overflowing charisma and even seeing her perform through a screen is enough for me. But a weakness is her height, and like most tall female idols, dance moves can look a little odd, even if they are done correctly. Her technique is pretty solid, but she could improve in some spots. Overall, still an amazing idol dancer that has great control and a lot of energy for someone so young. Lastly is her rapping. There is no doubt that Yuna is one of the best rappers in itzy. Her flow, rhythm, technique is all incredible. She knows when to add emphasis on certain words to make her performance 100 times better, and she's very clear. She has great projection and talking singing suits her more than singing. But nevertheless, Yuna is incredibly talented for someone that is so young, and she deserves more than what people credit her for. She is definitely an all-rounder, but is she the most well-rounded? So usually this is where I start to rank the members considering their rankings in all three categories, but since I wanted to keep itzy's rankings until the end, I will be revealing each category's ranking one by one followed by the final well-rounded ranking. So first is the ranking in vocals. Here it is. This was a tough decision because as much as I love Leah, I was still debating on who was a better vocalist in terms of technique, versatility, and style. But now I have settled on Leah. While Yeji has better projection and stability, Leah's range is more versatile and her voice is more suited for any song, not just itzy songs unlike Yeji's voice. All of itzy are amazing vocalists, but out of the 5 of them, Leah takes the cake in this category. Next is the ranking in dancing. Here it is. I think we all know that itzy is filled with fantastic dancers and they are one of the best when it comes to the 4th generation, and there is always talk about who is the best in itzy, and I have settled on Chaeyoung. While Chaeyoung lacks in the aspect of making consistent facial expressions and while her charisma on stage isn't as good as Yeji's, I am ranking them based on their dancing, not their ability of being idol dancers. Chaeyoung is first because she excels in everything a regular dancer has, plus some more, and while she still lacks in making facial expressions and her stage presence is a little weak, she has improved so much since debut in those qualities. And while Yeji has a lot of power and is very sharp, she tends to overdance in performances, while Chaeyoung has the perfect amount of energy and control. Other than that, she may not be the best idol dancer, but she's confident, consistent, and the best dancer in itzy. Next is the rapping ranking. Here it is. Roojin and Yuna are incredible when it comes to rapping, like, they are way above average. Afterwards, there's a little gap between Yeji and Yuna, but it is not the worst. It was pretty much a given Roojin was the best rapper in the group as she is the main rapper and the only one in itzy. She still has room for improvement, but in all honesty she is above average for a rapper and her skill is so much more honed and better compared to other rappers in her generation. Hence why she is first. Lastly we have the final ranking. Please take into account that this is not final just like the previous rankings, and these can always change at any time, and that this does not mean I'm ranking them by least to most talented, but just on the previous categories said before. So here we go. At 5th we have Choi Jisoo, aka Leah. Leah still has a lot of improving to do in dancing, but she's not as bad as people make her out to be. She has a lot of energy and is an amazing idol dancer. Since she doesn't rap as much, I couldn't really discuss her strengths and weaknesses properly, so I hope to see her rap more in the future. Technically Leah is considered an all-rounder since she performs decently in singing, dancing and rapping. She is definitely talented and is an amazing idol in other aspects, not just in these categories. Next up in 4th place we have Shin Yuna. Considering her being 17 years old and being this skilled in almost everything, she is very talented. She is most definitely well-rounded as an idol, and while she may not be the most in itzy, she is a true hidden gem, and I'm glad she got to make her debut to showcase her talent and her charisma with people. Next in 3rd place we have Shin Roojin. Roojin is quite similar to Yuna. They both have similar strengths and both could improve in singing, but Roojin is just slightly better in rapping and dancing. Roojin is definitely an all-rounder, like the rest of itzy is, and I'm glad she got put in itzy. Lastly we have 2nd and 1st place. 2nd place goes to Lee Chaeyoung, making the most well-rounded member of itzy, Hwang Yeji. This was a tight race between the both of them, but it came down to the numbers. While Chaeyoung is first in dancing, Yeji is higher in singing and rapping, even if it's just by 1 spot. Yeji is just an incredible idol with so many desirable qualities, and yes, she is the real ace of itzy. They are all aces if you think about it, but Yeji isn't called JYP's secret weapon for no reason. So after doing all this research on the members, I can confirm that Yeji is the most well-rounded member of itzy, or the ace of aces you could say. Anyways, that's it for this video. Just remember that this wasn't a competition and that this video was just made for fun. So please take what I say with a grain of salt, for it's not supposed to hurt your feelings. If you made it to the end, why not subscribe? Please wear a mask. Stay safe and I'll see you next time.